Think about, we're breathing carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is the deadly gas, and people have killed themselves. People have died with carbon monoxide, and we've got hundreds of millions of cars driving around. Well, think about it, when we're sitting at a traffic jam, you're getting all stressed up. You're surrounded with all these thousands of cars that are spewing poison in the air, and we're breathing poison. Do you add poison to your food before you eat it? Nobody does. That's you think, what a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But we've got poison in the air, and we're breathing it in. That poison, the oil leaks, that goes into the water system. Obviously, you see the oil. What happened with BP in the Gulf of Mexico. BP, interestingly enough, BP is one of the major solar panel producers in the world. And they could have spent that $40 billion they were going to spend on cleaning up and whatever the cost of that cleanup and damages to people, lives, the states, the environment, which is irreparable. But they're spending $40 billion paying for damages. They could have invested in solar carports and charge stations that would produce fuel for millions of cars for over 30 years.
So that brings us to a question of how are we going to switch from building the old kind of cars to the new kind of cars? You say that BP already is creating solar panels.
Right.
That's part of, but they haven't really made the shift. They're still.
Well, they're calling themselves beyond petroleum because It's a transition. I mean, this is we're talking about a $7 trillion industry. It's electricity with coal and fossil fuel is about $3-4 trillion. Automobiles another $3-4 trillion. Yes. So we're talking about multi-trillion-dollar industry and millions of jobs. That's not going to happen overnight. But it is a transition. Within this decade, we could totally get away with this renewable energy. Invest our money in, go away with fossil fuel and invest into renewable energy instead of spending money for wars, for environmental disasters because of oil and coal. We could easily invest that into renewable energy, solar farms, solar carports, solar roofs. I mean, just think about a solar farm. What other kind of farming can you do that you just install solars and forget about it for 35 years? It can yield, produce energy, clean energy for not just regular electricity, but also for automobiles.
Right.
And have charge stations while you're parking at work for 8 hours a day. You could be plugged in, and it doesn't take 8 hours to charge up your car. Because you're just kind of topping it off. At night you can plug it in, and they're charged. Right now General Electric and multiple companies are coming out with these charge stations, and it does have a plug that we can actually tax and produce tax revenues just like we do with gasoline. We can create that for plug-in electric cars, pure electric cars.
So some viewers might be wondering, okay, I've heard that electric cars will only go on one charge for 45 miles. Or can you talk about that? I'm sure there are different ways to design things.
There's a lot of it. Of course, this is just like imagine when we had computers 30 years ago, cell phones 30 years ago. What technology? Technology, when there's a demand for technology and development, it advances by leaps and bounds. Imagine the cell phones that we had just 20 years ago, or computers 20 years ago. How far we've come. And automobiles have happened, the same thing has happened. And once we start the production, we can have 500, 600 miles. Right now they're easily, Tesla for example has a car that goes well over 200 miles. The new one that they're coming out with next year, it's going to have 300-mile range. Nissan Leaf is over 100 miles, and of course you can plug it in. And average people, 80% of people, they don't drive 100 miles any more than 100 miles a day.
Right.
There's some people with exception, of course they do, but and a lot of the majority of people have more than 2 cars. So you can still have one electric car for the daily use and have one that you're going to vacation, you know, and within 10 years,
Road trip.
yeah, it's road trip, go to Seattle. Oh, but that is a transition that's happening right now. Just like 100 years ago, we didn't have gas stations all over the place. When cars were coming into the production, it was just for around town. It was a toy for rich people. And rich people, in order to have a car, they had to have a gas pump in their house. I mean, in their property, in their home, in their backyard. So, as more and more people bought cars, prices came down, more people could afford cars, then they start to have gas stations around town, usually in the downtown area. So you could fill up there too. And
We've seen it done, so it's doable.
It is doable. So right now what I'm saying is that over the next 10 years we're going to have switchable batteries. Nationwide we're going to have quick charges that it takes within an hour. You can top up 80% of your charge.